The sun is a big ball of burning plasma that's around 300 million kilometers away from Earth, and yet its power touches nearly every aspect of life here. The most obvious way it does this is through the process of photosynthesis, which literally takes the sun's rays and converts them into chemical energy. Let's take a look at the equation for photosynthesis. On the left side, we have all the stuff that plants need to do it: light, water, and carbon dioxide. On the right side is what they produce: sugars and oxygen. Here's how it works. Water molecules split apart into oxygen, hydrogen, and an electron. The electron is energized by light and combines with carbon dioxide to make sugar. The hydrogen ends up going back into the water, splitting step, and the oxygen gets released into the atmosphere. So let's just review that again. Plants use light, water, and carbon dioxide to make their own food in the form of sugars, while releasing oxygen as a waste product. This has huge implications not only for plants, but also for every other living thing on Earth. First, since plants are primary producers, they create the base of food webs and support ecosystems by producing food and biomass. Second, they remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and without plants, well, we'd suffocate because there wouldn't be any oxygen left. Plants are so efficient at removing carbon dioxide that they remove 4 times more than we humans emit each year. But that doesn't mean that humans don't play a role in the carbon cycle. The reason we can get away with emitting lots of carbon dioxide is because the oceans and plants absorb even more of it. In fact, over the past 50 years, the ocean has absorbed about half of all human-caused carbon dioxide emissions. But since fossil fuels are coal, oil, or natural gas formed from ancient photosynthetic organisms, burning them adds more carbon to the atmosphere than producers can pull out. As humans, we've disrupted the balance between carbon and oxygen in the atmosphere. But before we jump into that, let's talk about the first reason why the sun is so important. Photosynthesis converts light energy into chemical energy. Let's think about what that means. When you walk outside, you're bombarded by photons of light, little packets of energy that carry electromagnetic radiation like radio waves, microwaves, infrared radiation, visible light, and ultraviolet radiation. Visible light is just a small band of wavelengths within the electromagnetic spectrum, and we see different wavelengths as different colors. Photons of visible light have much less energy than other types of electromagnetic radiation, like X-rays or gamma rays, but they have enough energy to drive the process of photosynthesis. See, cells can't directly use light energy. They need to convert it to a chemical form, which is where photosynthesis comes in. During photosynthesis, plants capture light energy, using pigments like chlorophyll, and then convert it into chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. These molecules store the energy that's carried by light until it's needed to build sugars. Without photosynthesis, life as we know it could unexist, because there'd be no way to harness the energy and light. When it comes to getting your hands dirty in the garden, it doesn't get better than a pair of gloves from our sponsor, Gardener's Supply Company. Okay, now back to the video. Photosynthesis is responsible for producing most of the oxygen in the atmosphere. You might remember from earlier that during photosynthesis, plants release oxygen as a byproduct. Now, if you've ever watched another video on our channel, you probably know that plants and animals both need oxygen for cellular respiration. During respiration, organisms break down sugars to release their stored energy. For this process, cells use oxygen and release carbon dioxide and water as waste products. Since plants photosynthesize, they produce the oxygen that they and other organisms need for respiration. Likewise, animals and other organisms that carry out respiration contribute to the carbon cycle by adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Both processes depend on the other. And if it weren't for photosynthesis, we would use up all the oxygen in the atmosphere pretty quickly. What's more, without respiration, all the sugars produced by plants would quickly build up and essentially poison the entire ecosystem. So oxygen and carbon dioxide are balanced in the atmosphere thanks to photosynthesis and respiration. Sometimes when there's a lot of water around, algae blooms can occur. Algae blooms happen when there are high levels of nutrients in the water that lead to an overgrowth of microorganisms like algae. It's kind of like when your bathtub starts getting all fizzy and gross after you leave your rubber duck in there for a while. But instead of being caused by your rubber duck, algae blooms are caused by excess nutrients, usually nitrogen and phosphorus. Entering waterways from agricultural runoff or wastewater discharge, the extra nutrients act like fertilizer for algae, causing it to reproduce rapidly. This can result in massive overgrowth that negatively impacts the ecosystem. For example, when the algae eventually dies, its decomposition by bacteria can deplete oxygen levels in the water, creating what's known as hypoxia, essentially suffocating fish and other aquatic life. Additionally, the decomposition of algae can also release hydrogen sulfide, which is toxic to fish and other aquatic organisms. This can lead to large-scale fish kills and disruption of the entire ecosystem. Another concern is that harmful algal blooms, also known as red tides, can produce toxins that accumulate in shellfish like clams and mussels. These toxins can then be passed on to humans who consume the shellfish, leading to paralytic shellfish poisoning.
Ow!
This makes it unsafe for people to eat these types of shellfish during an algal bloom. Algae blooms can also impact water quality, affecting the taste, odor, and overall potability of water. This can pose challenges for drinking water treatment facilities and can lead to economic losses in industries such as tourism and fisheries. Okay, now back to the video. Photosynthesis produces biomass. Let's take a closer look at that. The biomass of an ecosystem is the total mass of living organisms in that area. Think of all the trees, shrubs, grasses, insects, fungi, and microorganisms living together in one area. That's the biomass. One of the most important roles that plants play is creating biomass because they're the primary producers. They convert light energy into chemical energy in the form of sugars, which become the building blocks for plant biomass. When herbivores eat plants, they gain the energy and nutrients they need to build their own biomass. The same thing happens when carnivores eat herbivores. Ultimately, all biomass on Earth originates from plants. Plants also help to build soil structure. Their roots bind soil particles together, reduce erosion, and improve water infiltration. This creates a habitat for microorganisms and provides a stable environment for other organisms. Now, you might be thinking, well, yeah, all this sounds great, but what does it have to do with the sun? Well, you see, the sun provides the energy that drives photosynthesis, which is the process that allows plants to create biomass in the first place. Without the sun's energy, plants wouldn't be able to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars and biomass. Therefore, the sun is essential for creating the biomass that supports all life on Earth. In addition to providing the energy that drives photosynthesis, the sun also influences the climate, weather patterns, and day length, all of which affect the growth and distribution of plants and ultimately biomass production. For instance, the intensity and duration of sunlight influence the rate of photosynthesis, and therefore the amount of biomass that can be produced. Weather patterns such as temperature and precipitation also play a significant role. They affect the availability of water and nutrients, which are essential for plant growth. Different plants have adapted to survive in various climatic conditions, leading to variations in biomass across different regions. Day length or photoperiod can also impact plant growth and development. Some plants require a certain number of daylight hours to flower or produce seeds, while others may be more sensitive to the duration of darkness. These photoperiodic responses can influence biomass production and the timing of biological activities. Fossil fuels are formed from ancient photosynthetic organisms. You might remember that during photosynthesis, plants produce sugars. Those sugars can become part of larger molecules called polymers. For example, cellulose is a polymer made of sugars. You may have seen cellulose in the form of paper or cotton. But cellulose and other plant polymers can also be found in deposits throughout layers of rock. Over millions of years, heat and pressure can transform these deposits into fossil fuels like coal and oil. So the sun's energy is indirectly responsible for the formation of fossil fuels. But today, we burn fossil fuels at such a high rate that we disrupting the balance of carbon and oxygen in the atmosphere. If we were to stop burning fossil fuels, it would take thousands of years for the levels of carbon dioxide and oxygen to return to normal. So the sun's energy is essential for life on Earth. Without it, there would be no energy to drive photosynthesis, no oxygen to support respiration, and no biomass to support food webs. While the sun's energy has allowed life to flourish on Earth, it's also responsible for the formation of fossil fuels, which we've been burning at unsustainable rates. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. We have to find ways to harness the sun's S-energy more efficiently, while reducing our reliance on fossil fuels if we want to continue to thrive on this planet. Thank you for watching this episode, which was brought to you with the help of our patrons. If you'd like to help us make videos like these, you can go to our support page to learn more.